post later. And the meeting is now being recorded. So, all right. Couple of quick housekeeping notes. One is just to remind you that next week, our last class, the last uh, the last class preparation assignment number 3 is due before class. And also to ask those of you who haven't yet responded to the uh, survey for the speakers, I'd appreciate your feedback so that we know who the best people are to invite back next time. All right, let me do a quick check of everybody's. All right, everybody I see is making. Oh, somebody likes the curtains. Good. Yeah, they have an automatic deal here. Everything in this room is automated. So back to our technology and meetings is technology in a sleeping room. By far, I'm at the Aria Resort, by the way. If any of you have ever been here. Okay, let's begin. Uh, Today I'm really talking about 3 different aspects of the industry that, well, they're interrelated in that they all fall under this tourism umbrella that we have, but they're all separate entities within their own right. And I think it's appropriate that we start with talking about club management first, and we'll talk about theme parks and cruise industry because the club management is one that has some relevance to what we actually saw at the student industry exchange, and I'll get to that in just a minute. So what we're talking about here, though, is in particular is the private club management aspect of things. The private club is what we mean. Okay, I'm getting my system down here as I'm advancing my slides. Here we go. So there are a number of different types of private clubs, if you will, sort of classify them into country clubs. That's the easiest one to identify. Has a golf course usually, uh, but a lot of fine dining and other kinds of dining aspect of things. Certainly, golfers come in; they have their grills, the other areas in terms of that. Then you have something that we have quite a few of here in San Francisco. You have the city clubs. There's a lot of them here, and we'll get to that in a few minutes in terms of some that you might know. And then there's all kinds of other clubs. For example, athletic clubs. Bay Club is an example of they don't see themselves any longer, as I think they probably said to you, as an athletic club. They see themselves in the hospitality industry. But military clubs, in fact, when I was studying my MBA at Michigan State years ago, the a number of my classmates were Army and Navy guys who were actually running clubs for them at the time. That's what they did. Tennis clubs, yacht clubs. So a private club is a place where members gather for social, recreational, professional, and fraternal reasons, of course. They have an affluent clientele. It's an expensive membership, right? They're typically, but they're not always designed, as it mentioned here, around housing developments where neighborhoods can utilize the services. I think that refers more to the country club in my mind, and it refers more to the environments of like Palm Springs, Orlando, places like that in the resort type destinations. That's certainly not the typical of what we see here in San Francisco. Now, I ask you a question at this point. The Club Managers Association of America, which we'll talk a little bit about, uh, has some very specific rules about who is a member and who isn't a member in terms of what qualifications they have to have for membership. That is the club's membership. And one of those stipulations is that there has to be a process for approval of members. It's not just a matter of putting money down. It's a matter of also having a committee or a group of people that review members. So, in that context, first question I want to ask you is for those of you who had the opportunity to talk to Bay Club, do you think that Bay Club is a potential CMAA member, or are they a CMAA member? So I'm going to wait for you to post a few of your responses on that. I see one yes from Marion, and he says she thinks so. I see another yes. Another yes, they agree. Membership is required. Max, yes. Agree to. Okay. Everybody's saying yes. Well, that's interesting. It's a good thing I'm not asking this on an exam because the answer is actually no. Believe it or not, uh, the uh, the manager of the St. Francis Yacht Club, a new member of our board, Ron Benisacek, is was there, and we were talking about that beforehand. And the thing is about the Bay Club is there is no committee for evaluation of members. If you put your money down, you become a member, and that therefore does not qualify them for Club Managers Association. You have to be an exclusive club with exclusive membership, and therefore Bay Club and other, well, fitness clubs, they don't like to put themselves in that category, but part of what they are is certainly that, are basically uh, approval based on your submission of the dollars and the application. But as some said, I'm looking at your comments here. That's why it's taking me a minute to go through. Uh, the yes, consider the club, and in the terminology that we're talking about here, as a private club, yes, but as a member of the CMAA, they wouldn't be a member of CMA. So that's the difference. The difference there has to do with the membership. Now, a club management is similar to hotel management in some ways, right? I mean, well, let's see. Why wouldn't it be? Yes, I mentioned why it wouldn't be a member because the exclusivity of the membership aspect of it. Well, one of the things that's similar to a hotel, obviously, is the food and beverage operation, right? And in a hotel, you have guests that are served that they require the same kind of service. All that kind of thing is important. So I think that there's a great deal of correlation, which is one of the reasons why Bay Club and Victor in particular feels that they are a hospitality organization and not an athletic club. An athletic club is where somebody goes to work out. They go to operate the equipment. They are not operate the equipment, work out on the equipment. They participate in the classes. Alexis, you can teach some of those. The Zuma, and you can do all of that. They can do all those kind of things. But what they want is they want them to come there for other purposes. They want them to come there to socialize, to be a part of an organization. They want service to be the primary reason why people join. And obviously, at the rate, the prices that they charge, that's something that's important to them. Okay, I'm just going to take a minute to look at your clubs. Okay, Marianne, we'll get back to your question in a minute, Marianne, because that's really going to come up shortly. But members pay an initiation fee and an annual dues. Okay, well, that would certainly be appropriate to them over there at Bay Club too. Members feel that they have ownership, and again, that could be the case. Not always. Some private clubs are purely owned by owners, and others are owned by companies. Club Corp is one who owns a lot of various operations, and therefore the members don't actually own it. But there are others that are owned by the members themselves. So, but they have that feeling of membership ownership. There are many clubs in the U.S., and as we mentioned, Club Managers Association of America is geared to those private organizations. So you look at this organization chart of a large country club, and what you see on here, and I'm going to look over at my other iPad over here because I would have a hard time, as you might have, reading that. But primary on the left side, food and beverage director. That's probably the most critical aspect of what a club, a city club, is certainly all about. Directors of human resources, controllers, membership directors, director of purchasing, the and then you get to the right side of that is the recreation and the athletic side. Now, certainly at a country club, the golf aspect is going to be critical to the overall element of what that club is about. But remember that even in that environment, a lot of clubs, what they do is they establish a minimum food and beverage spending that you have to spend each and every month. So even if you go out and play golf every day, if you don't eat in the restaurants, bring your family to the restaurants, and that you may still have a minimum food and beverage. In fact, earlier on in my professional career, I was a member of a private club in Grand Rapids, Michigan, back when I was still a junior member. And I didn't eat in that restaurant enough times on several different months and still had to pay that amount that was due. You know, when you have little kids, sometimes it's hard to go out to country clubs with them. But most important and mostly frequently used competencies. I think this is an important element to understand about a private club that may be a little different than when you work in a large hotel with a lot of support systems, or even in a restaurant group that has a lot of support systems. Is that now in a private club, you have to do all the accounting and finance. You're responsible for that. Human resources, you're the hiring person, or you're responsible for the people that are hired. The marketing aspect of it, all of those kind of things, employee relations, all the things you see down that left-hand side are all jobs that a club manager does. So, in a real sense, they are responsible for everything that goes on in that operation. They report to a board of directors, but they're responsible for everything that goes on in the operation. Now, the difference between that and, let's say, owning your own private independent restaurant is that you don't own it. So you don't get the profits from it. You're just managing it in this environment. But it's a pretty nice environment to be managing it. And within the structure, the difference in clubs, of course, is that there are members, there are board of directors, there's an executive committee, and then you, the hospitality professional, who's the general manager in day-to-day operation. You know, you have to report to a board of directors who represent the members and the members' thoughts. Now, in a restaurant or a hotel, you would certainly have an owner, you might have a board of directors, but their focus is on the profit that that organization is going to make, the service elements that it's going to make. The difference between that and a private club is that you have a lot of people with some very unique interests. You know, they think that this hour of the day should be reserved for a quiet time. You have a lot of clubs around the Bay Area where their policies are no cell phones, period. Can't use cell phones at all. St. Francis Yacht Club, for example. Interesting point, St. Francis Yacht Club. You can send a text out, but you can't get a text in. That's a very odd thing, but it's one of their strange rules. In fact, when we were looking at the general manager job at the Hotel Icon in Hong Kong, Palau, one of the criteria that we were looking for was someone who had this kind of skill, this kind of background, because unlike a typical owned hotel situation, this one was owned by a government, if you will, a university, and people who don't know anything about running a business and aren't in it for profit. Well, that's the kind of environment that you work with in a private club. I think that's one of the key elements to do that. So you have members with bylaws and rules. You have a board of directors, an executive committee who is responsible for obviously the main communication with you as the general manager, and then you as the general manager run the day-to-day operation. Now, city clubs, and I bring this up particularly for our environment because we have a number of them here, as I mentioned, in San Francisco. These are more business oriented. They're places for lunches, for dinners, for entertainment. They do social things, but their primary purpose is a place to go and entertain people, if you will, in a more private and exclusive kind of environment. Many have athletic facilities. You have university clubs. We don't have a university club here at USF, But in some towns and cities, especially where there isn't a big city nearby, they'll have a university club where the only members are faculty and staff and so on. I already mentioned military clubs, yachting clubs. Certainly, San Francisco Yacht Club qualifies on that basis. But the uniqueness of San Francisco is they're also a bit of a city club too, in terms of where they're located. Uh, in fraternal clubs, I mean, you have organizations like the Masons. In North Beach, there's an organization of Italian Americans. That club has a food and beverage operation, so on. There's somebody who has to manage that. So all of those are what we're talking about here. So the city clubs in San Francisco, St. Francis Yacht Club, I already mentioned. Metropolitan Club is another one, and these are the photos that you see here. University Club, Bohemian Club. Which one is the club pictured in the lower right side with the cable car going in front of it that happens to be across Powell Street from where we were for the Student Industry Exchange? Who can tell me which one that one is? And while you're doing that, I'm going to get a glass of water here, a bottle of water. I'm back. Okay, let's see. I'm not seeing any new posts coming up, but I'm seeing people typing. Which one is the one on the lower right side across the street from where we had the Student Industry Exchange? No, it's not a hotel. No, it's not a hotel. It's a city club. It's on this list of four that I have right there in front of you. It's on this list of four that we have right in front of you. Metropolitan Club. Oh, good guess, but no. University Club. There you go. It's the University Club. Does that mean that we have a membership in that? Um, nope. Sorry, it doesn't. Yeah, Bohemian Club. No, Bohemian Club is down the street a bit from there. So we don't have a membership just because it has University Club. In this case, it's the name of the building, and they have some great facilities in there, but it's actually not associated with any particular university that I'm aware of. Maybe there is, but it's the University Club. Now, okay, those are the city clubs. What other private country clubs do you know in the Bay Area? One was already brought up here in an earlier question. Yes, the Olympic Club. And what's the Olympic Club famous for? The U.S. Open. I believe it's actually where Tiger Woods won his first major. Well, the U.S. Open is not a private club. I see people putting golf clubs. No, I meant names. I wanted to know what the names of some of those private clubs are. Some of the names of those private clubs. The most well-known in San Francisco, the most well-known country club is the Olympic Club. Del Rio, yes, and that was your speaker for the breakfast at 60, right? So the Del Rio Country Club, yeah. Presidio, I don't know, is Presidio a private country club? I'm not sure about that, Max. I'm not aware of that one as a private country club. I'm thinking of one that actually starts with the name of the city, called the San Francisco Country Club, which is next to the Olympic Club. Was the Olympic Club men only until 20 years ago? That one I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. The Bohemian Club, City Club, is men only. However, they have a very interesting summer program that they do up north, and that club they allow women to do internships there and women to work there. You just can't stay there. They have rooms. They don't have very many, but they have some rooms there. Okay, I'm letting you catch up on your messages to me. Now, if I were to ask you a poll right now, I'd say, okay, how many of you find clubs interesting? But that would mean that you'd all have to start doing an individual posting right now, and that probably would be a few too many. But I'll tell you what, if you just raise your hand, go up there to the raise your hand aspect or where you have it on yours, and raise your hand if you're interested in clubs. Annie, Max, see a few people up there. Wow, all of you are interested in private clubs. Are you interested in working there, or you just want to become a member? That would be the question, right? Because if you work there, you can't be a member. Oh, wow. A lot of you are interested in private clubs. I'm impressed. Well, the Club Managers Association will be very impressed with that. And I would suspect that you'll hear a lot more from them. I know that a number of you went to hear the speaker and Dr. Millar's class this past week to hear about the club industry. It is an interesting aspect. And one of the things about it, by the way, very similar in nature, if you will, to the contract food service aspect of things, is that the hours are different than your typical restaurant aspect of it. But I see 11 of you had an interest in that. Very good. All right. That's interesting to know. Okay, let's change to another one of the important entities within our field, if you will, towards the tourism side. Let me see. I have a question here. Why are you not allowed to work there if you're a member? Oh, that's a very good question. Because they do not want employees participating in the actual club activities. Typically, a country club, what they do is Mondays are usually a dark day for a country club. Now, this isn't, city clubs are different, but Mondays are a dark day for country clubs. So if you work there, my son and daughter both worked at a country club during their summers when they were going to college and so on. Then they would get privileges to be able to go out and play on those days. That was their privilege. But as a manager, you're not. You're a worker. You're not a member. The club is there for members. You can play for free. That not always, Max. That's not always. That does vary with operations depending on the type of course. I think if you worked at Augusta, for example, you might not be given the ability to play there for free. That might be in many cases that's the case. In fact, when I was growing up, and my dad belonged to a club that I learned how to play golf at in the Detroit area, and the son of the greenskeeper who couldn't play regularly, he was an excellent golfer, so I used to play with him on Mondays. Theme parks. Now, believe it or not, we think that theme parks are associated with Disney and that Disney began theme parks, but it is true that Disney did start theme parks, or that theme parks did start in California, but not Disney. So I have a question from Hope. She said, "Is this just for clubs associated with CMAA? My friends are also members of a private club, but also work there." That's interesting. No, I'm not just thinking about CMAA. I'm talking about private clubs that require a membership committee reviewing you and so on in the process. But there are many different variations of this, but the typical private club, that's what I'm talking about. So theme parks began Knott's Berry Farm. I would suspect that many of you, especially if you're from Southern California, have been to Knott's Berry Farm. And it was a berry farm and tea room in what was then, the countryside, and not very far away from Disney. And that grew with the attractions. And now they're owned by a company called Cedar Fair Entertainment. And Cedar Fair Entertainment is headquartered in Ohio. They started with the Cedar Point. And Cedar Point, when I was growing up in Detroit, Cedar Point down in Ohio was where we would go. We would drive down to Ohio to go to Cedar Point, which was a more organized aspect of what used to be like county fairs and so on. And that's kind of what they were about. They were about special rides and Ferris wheels and so on. Now, the size and the scope of the industry today, as we know, it has broadened significantly. And you have theme parks that are based around historical aspect. Williamsburg, Virginia, which if you haven't been there, by the way, is a fantastic place. Cultural types. Around the world, we have different cultures that have their own uniqueness, and so therefore a park may grow up around that concept. In Shenzhen, for example, in China, there's what I want to say, that Magic Kingdom. It's called the Kingdom of the World, and it's all about the historical aspects of China, geographical, so on. There are many different aspects of it. And some parks focus on single themes. Let's say a water park, and others are more with multiple aspect of things. But we might think of SeaWorld as predominantly one that would be a single theme type of a park, for example. Whereas Disney in itself is certainly, we know, multiple. The key players, I mean, if we're talking about the big names and we're talking about this as the big industry that it is today, uh, obviously in the center of all this is Disney, and where Disney is a key element where they're building, where they're going, and their growth in Asia and Europe and so on. Universal Studios is another. Of course, Universal Studios began not too far from us down in Southern California, Hollywood, but Universal Studios in Orlando is a huge operation. In fact, they also own three or four now major hotels that are associated with them. They're managed by others. They're managed by the Lowe's Corporation, actually. Lowe's manages all of their hotels there. And then you have SeaWorld and the SeaWorld adventure parks around the world in various locations as well. I put those out there as the bigger players that everybody knows, and I also put them out there because all of those are organizations that offer in different ways in different places internship opportunities for hospitality management students from different in different areas. Of course, the Disney program is been around for a long time and has been a very sophisticated program based in Orlando. This is an interesting chart in terms of looking at the top 25 theme parks around the world in terms of visitors. Part of the thing that's interesting about this is that they split up different sections of Disney, so that if you look at this, Magic Kingdom, Disneyland, and then Epcot down below. Well, Epcot and Magic Kingdom are in the same place, so if you really look at that, they're certainly all up at the top. So Disney takes up the first 8 spots before Universal Studios comes in there, and then you have Everland in South Korea, and you have a number of others around the world, Lotte World, and also in South Korea. There are others and many others in different places. It's not a uniqueness just to the United States, of course, but the large and the size is certainly what we normally associate with the largest ones being here. And now you look at Europe, and it's probably a little hard to see from your screens in terms of what you have in front of you there. I'm going to pull mine in closer to me. The various parks that you see in France, in England, Germany, there's a very close proximity to where all of those are and where all those countries are in the process. So those kind of theme parks may not be the ones that are best known on your list, although Disney is in France. So let's talk a little bit about Disney and the company overview. And this probably should have said Disney company overview. It was founded in 1923 by Walt Disney, and we know who Walt Disney was, the creator of Mickey Mouse. But today, Disney is a huge entertainment and media company. ABC is Disney, for example. They went through some big changes in management in 2006. When I was in Orlando, what had happened just previous to, and really around the time that I was in Orlando and across the street from Disney, if you will, is that Disney had been run by the Disney family for a long time. And there were some quirky things about that were not looked at by the board of directors very favorably. So the board of directors essentially voted Roy Disney, who was whether he was brother or I'm not sure the exact relationship with Walt. I don't think it was his brother, actually. I think he was uncle. He had a different relationship in there. Got voted out, and they brought in 2 outside people for the first time. And this was about 1980, 85, something like that. They brought in 2 outside people. They brought in Michael Eisner and Frank Wells. And both of these guys had tremendous management credentials, management experience, but they had no background whatsoever with regards to the theme park industry, nor did they actually have any background in the hospitality industry. Now, they think they came out of the movie type industry. So one of the things that they did that was very successful in the process overall for them is they're the ones who got ABC, ESPN, started developing the cruise lines, did all of that aspect. The movie aspect was already there. They had that in place, but they didn't really get the culture completely. Now Frank Wells was the president. I had a chance to meet both of them on a tour of the hotel I was opening in Orlando. And in fact, a little side story: I was actually touring Frank Wells, who is the president, and the CEO, Michael Eisner, and his son were toured by my GM, and we're taking them through. And I said something to Mr. Wells. He was well known, by the way, for adventure things and things that he did along those lines. And I said something about Mr. Wells, and he says, please call me Frank, and they were already getting the name down. But Frank Wells was actually killed in a helicopter skiing accident. But afterwards, Eisner eventually did not sit well with the board in terms of where he was at, and he was taken out in 2006. And so the company that you see with Disney today has evolved considerably over that period of time from the corporate standpoint. Now, from a competitive edge standpoint, responsiveness to customers and innovation. I mean, I think those are the key elements that anyone would have to associate with what makes Disney successful. They're customer oriented, excellent customer service. They know how to segment their markets. One of the successes of Disney World is all of these various parks within the park. The Magic Kingdom, Epcot Center, the Animal Kingdom, all of these other aspects of it. Each one has a different flavor to it. Their idea was to expand the amount of time that the guest would stay in Orlando and stay with them. They also have different resorts at those different locations in order to do that. Those were innovative kind of ideas when they created them. Other theme parks didn't have hotel concepts with them. They didn't associate the idea of keeping people more times. You went to SeaWorld for the day, and that was it. You went to Universal Studios for the day. That was it. You didn't think about going to them as a destination to stay a long time. And having been in Orlando in the early days of when Epcot opened, and what it did and how it impacted that area and how it impacted the whole theme park industry was just incredible. It's incredible. And they definitely had a competitive advantage there. Now, Disney has its quirks. Disney is not an easy organization to work for if you are a person who doesn't like structure and doesn't like systems, because Disney is a huge structure and system organization from every aspect of it, and that's part of their success. Lots of systems, lots of success. They're not so much everyone has their own drummer and they beat their own beat of their own drummer. They don't necessarily go by that, so they're very structured from that standpoint. But you can't find a better company in terms of what they actually accomplish and achieve. There was a book written a number of years ago about Disney's success that I had a chance to pick up and read, and having been very intimately involved with who they were, being across the street from them. Well, we sit across the street. They called it Interstate Highway. It was a matter of semantics. But we were across the street from them. They say the competition is anyone the customer compares you with. We're going to get back to that in a second, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. The competition is anyone the customer compares you with. Pay fantastic attention to detail. Now, one of the things that means in Disney's environment is they go back into the Magic Kingdom, for example, and walking down Main Street, and they paint and repaint that area on a regular basis, whether it needs it or not. They don't go and wait for the paint to chip or the paint to get or things to get worn. They paint it every day in order to make sure that, well, not every day, they paint it on a regular basis to make sure that everything always looks brand new. Everyone walks the talk. One of the things that's very important about the culture of Disney, particularly the culture of Disney World, is that no character is ever seen out of uniform. If any of you have worked at Disney or had that opportunity, you would know that they have little secret walkways or doors, and you go in those little secret doors, and you go into this huge underground environment, which is really the working environment where people change in and out of their costumes. But those doors are well hidden. You don't see them around. If you watch closely, you can see a staff member go to it, but they're not something that a young kid looking around would say, "Oh, look at that! Snow White's going into there." They wouldn't see that. It would be kept well behind them. Also, by the way, there are only two face characters in the Magic Kingdom: Snow White and Cinderella. They're the only two face characters. And by that I mean the real face of the young woman who's playing that role. They're all the others are a costume. They wear a costume too, of course, but their real face. Everything walks the talk. Everything that's built, all the construction, every aspect of it has to look and feel as if it's authentic. Customers are best heard through many ears. The Disney ears. They have a system where they do watch. What about all the princesses? That's interesting. I don't. What princesses? I'm not sure what you mean. In the Magic Kingdom, I only recall Cinderella and Snow White as the main characters. Are there princesses too? If they're princesses, then they may have their own faces too. So I don't know whether that's a sexist thing because only women are allowed to show their faces. Nearly all princesses are in Magic Kingdom. Oh, okay, all right, okay. Thank you for that clarification. As I say, I never worked in Disney, but I've certainly taken my kids there over the years. My youngest daughter grew up in Orlando, so when I went to visit her, that's always where we went. Customers have many ears. In other words, you listen to all of your customers. You get feedback from them, and everyone within the operation listens. They write things down. They have a whole system of service management that they write down and keep that together. So maybe they only have Snow White and Cinderella because they are the earliest Disney princesses. Well, okay, good point. You guys know more about it than you should at your age. Good for you. Reward, recognize, and celebrate. I'm just kidding because it was built for you. Reward, recognize, and celebrate. And I think that's an important element, and this is a major part of the culture in terms of their training. In fact, I would say to you that if any of you consider doing their 1 semester or summer internship programs that they have, they offer different courses there. The courses you take are the ones that Disney's really good at. Things like reward, recognize, and celebrate. That's really critical to who they are. Not the courses in human resources and so on that you could get in other places, but where they have their own uniqueness of it, but the things they really specialize in. And what does the last sentence say to you? I'll let you make some comments. What does the last sentence say to you? Let's see if somebody can type in what that last number 7 says. Multiple people are typing. Everyone makes a difference. Everyone makes a difference. Everyone makes a difference. Everyone makes a difference. So what's the point? What's the point of that statement? I'm watching closely for your responses. What's the point? Be flawless. Get close to every employee can make a difference. Well, those are the big pictures. What's the really small issue there? Every employee makes a difference. Yes, everyone makes a difference. What's missing? The E, right? One little letter, one little person out of place. And I think Marion put it well. One little person out of place makes a difference. And I think that's the key thing as to what they're all about. That's what their whole image is about. So let me get back to what was essentially the first question. Now let's see if I've got any more coming in. I think it's important. I think it's important to know the customer is a person in order to succeed. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, everyone makes a difference. Is more related, I think, to both sides. Customers, absolutely, good point. Employees make the difference. Yeah, employees make the difference. Customers make the difference. Everybody makes a difference. Listen to everything and everyone and what they say. So here's a question. Question comes back to the first one. Who is Disney's competitor? This is a trick question, if you will, but who is Disney's competitor? Knott's Berry Farm, DreamWorks, DreamWorks is Disney, by the way. So I don't think that's their competitor. That's who they are. This term relates to something called marketing myopia. Universal Studios. DreamWorks is Universal, I think. No, actually, no. DreamWorks is Steven Spielberg. So you may be right. It might be you might be right. That might be you might be right. But that's in the movie making business. I'm thinking about it more in terms of, let's put it this way: who is Disney World's competitor? Who is Disney World's competitor? No one. Well, that's a good point. They'd like to think so, but I don't know that that's completely true. Anyone a customer compares them to. Oh, Adrian, very good, very good. You're on the right track. Disney actually has a competitor, Time Warner Cable. Oh, okay. Six Flags. Here's the answer to this question. It's called marketing myopia. And the reason we talk about marketing myopia is the railroad industry had marketing myopia. The railroad industry did not think that they were in the transportation industry. They were in the railroad industry. They carried passengers. When airlines came on, they saw them as a competitor. They didn't try and buy or develop any airlines because they weren't in the transportation business. They were in the railroad business. So how many of you in the United States have taken a train recently, except for maybe Caltrain? Not very many of you. I doubt very many of you have taken a trip across country on a train, right? Well, the point is they lost. So the answer to this question is Disney sees as their competitor the new big screen TV, the home entertainment system, the new car. Why do they see those as their competitor? Because a trip to Disney World is an experience that a family saves up for years. In many cases, they save up for a long time to go to that. If mom and dad all of a sudden decide that they're Seattle Seahawk fans and they want to see the Super Bowl. Oh, I know. Sorry, didn't mention those guys. And they want to see the Super Bowl and they live out in eastern Washington someplace. They say, we're not going to Disney this year because we're buying a big screen TV because we want to watch the Super Bowl. They see any consumer spending item that competes with the family vacation, the family trip. That's who their competitor is. So do they think SeaWorld's their competitor? No. Do they think that Universal Studios is their competitor? No. To them, it's the discretionary dollar. And when I was in Orlando, this became very clear. You know, I've heard this in the textbooks, but I actually saw this in the operational situation. Disney went through a period of time in the, this was 1985, 86. They went through a period of time where the attendance was down. It wasn't as strong as it had been. But one of the things Disney had never done before that as a theme park operation, they'd never done, was advertise. They'd really never done any television advertising or anything like that. They felt just by opening their doors, people came. So they got into a competitive situation. So they decided that they were going to put a huge amount of money to improve their summer business, in particular their summer business. So what did they do? They went out and started doing television advertising and public relations campaigns to radio or to television stations in the Midwestern United States, in the South, in small towns, in small areas. And they went all over the place because what they were after was they were after that family who wanted to save up that money to take that lifetime trip with their kids to go to Disney World. And they were out there talking to them about it and excited about it. It was a tremendous success. Disney has never stopped advertising since then. They continued it from there. There were a lot of skeptics in the Disney organization at the time, but obviously it was a great success and they continued it. But the point was they weren't trying to compete against SeaWorld. They weren't trying to compete against, well, Universal Studios wasn't even there yet in those days. They weren't competing against SeaWorld. They weren't trying to compete there. They were competing against the dollars that family was going to spend on something else. So what does Disney see as their competitors? Much, much broader than other theme park operations. I think that's a key element to their success. Now, Universal Studios is certainly in the same competitive set, if you will, in terms of the reality of the theme park business. And they were all about the movie sets, and they see themselves, they see Disney as the competition, because obviously they're started in Hollywood, and Disney was in the studios. Disney Studios were in Burbank. They were near each other, and of course Disneyland in Southern California, in Anaheim. So their success was tied to their movies. So they have taken their movies and put them into their theme parks. And of course, when they built Orlando, that was a huge undertaking. And that area was actually where the pre-opening office of the Marriott World Center was, right across the street from where they were. They weren't there at the time, though. That's where we started. So they've become the largest movie and theme park. And Universal in Orlando is by far and away the largest. SeaWorld is part of a bigger organization today. They're a part of a larger organization in the process of who they are and what they are and their parks. But one of the key things about them is they're about conservation and education. That's how they portray themselves. Now, I know that some of you might feel, well, is this cruelty to animals or not? There's always that debate. There's always that debate as to whether it's education or not. Certainly, is a very different environment than the Monterey Bay Aquarium kind of thing. But you see a number of different operations over there, including SeaWorld, Busch Gardens, Adventure Island. There are many of these in terms of their various operations and parks. And then you have your regional theme parks. I don't know whether any of you have been to Dollywood. I haven't in Tennessee. Probably a number of you have been to Legoland. I haven't been there either. Gatorland, I've been there. Gatorland's been around since I was a kid. That's a long time ago. Wet and Wild. I'm not sure whether there's a Wet and Wild out here on the West Coast or not. There was a huge one in Orlando, and it was a great place that kids used to love to go, adults for that matter too. Six Flags we have in this area. Up in Vallejo, I believe, right? And then Great America. How many of you know who the hotel company was that used to own Great America? It's now owned by Cedar Fair Entertainment. It was owned by Paramount for a while. But prior to that, Great America was owned by a major hotel company. Anybody know who that was? I see a few hands typing. I see a Marriott up there. I see only one Marriott so far. Anyone else? What's that say? I done? I'm not sure what somebody, I think, oh, Marion, I think you were partially typing there. I'm just guessing. Okay. Marriott. Yes, you're correct. It was Marriott's Great America. And during the time that I worked for Marriott, we had Great America. They were a different part of the company. Marriott Hotels and Marriott's Great America did not cross over in terms of management staff and so on. We didn't promote from one to the other, but definitely we were all part of the same organization. All part of the same organization. But Marriott sold them. Marriott sold a number of their operations back around the same time they sold their in-flight catering operation. They got rid of that. They became more specialized in the hotel and in the timeshare or the vacation ownership side of things. And we have, whoops, myself back to the right place here. Animal attractions, zoos. Certainly we're blessed with one of the great ones in California and San Diego. I don't know that the San Francisco Zoo I'd put in that category, but certainly San Diego and the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. are two of the greatest attractions. There are some great zoos in the Chicago area as well, but that is another type of attraction. In fact, the downtown in Lincoln Park, You have the zoo in Lincoln Park in Chicago, which is it's a great place to go on weekends. Historic places and sites I mentioned, the things like Williamsburg in Virginia, which is a great place. But historic places, National Register of Historic Places, 85,000 listings of historical places that could be classified in the area of in the theme park area, not just an attraction in its own right, but a different type. And certainly, well, some of the world, Monticello, where Thomas Jefferson lived, which is a very interesting place, by the way, the French Quarter in New Orleans. I've been there. Martin Luther King National Historical Site, the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, and that's home of my least favorite hotel in the world, the Opryland Hotel. Sorry about that, guys, but Freedom Trail in Boston, Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. All these are attractions. They're all part of the tourism aspect. They're all part. I wouldn't call them theme parks, but they definitely have their own draws. Now, destinations as a whole can certainly be an attraction too. Athens, the capital of Greece, I mentioned. London, Paris, and of course Rome. All roads lead to Rome, and Rome is getting a lot of attention right now, right? With the two new saints and the two popes. So all roads are definitely were leading to Rome this past week. Okay, little question: what is your favorite theme park? What's your favorite theme park? This is a point where if anybody has any questions over the first two things we've talked about, feel free to raise your hand. Disneyland, I see. Disney in Tokyo, Disneyland, Disney. Disney has not lost. Disney World, Six Flags Magic Mountain. Oh, okay, a Southern California girl. All right. Tokyo as a whole, Max, or Tokyo Disneyland? What did you mean by that? SeaWorld. Uh-huh. Disneyland. Disney has infiltrated you well. Disneyland in Hong Kong. Disneyland soon to be in Shanghai. Disneyland in Tokyo. One of the things that Disney has done by adding all these new locations is actually brought more people wanting to go to Disney World itself. Once you go to the mini version in Hong Kong, you want to go see the bigger version in the United States. No question about it. It's not the place where you save up your entire family money to go. Max says Gator World in Orlando, Florida is nice. Really? Okay, interesting. Different taste. Yes, Disneyland, Hong Kong is very small. Yes, it's a small world of Disney. Yes, great family fun. Alana, what you're typing? I see what you say. Same thing for Universal Studios in Singapore. Oh yes, Universal Studios in Singapore. Yes, I almost forgot about them. And that's an interesting operation too, because that whole place is actually part of the Ginting Group, which is when we talk about gaming next week. That is a big part of who that is. Okay, let's talk about the last portion for the day in terms of the cruise lines. I know a number of you said you were interested in the cruise lines when we first started, so let's talk a little bit about them. Cruising in the U.S. over 42 billion economics, 356,000 jobs, 20 million plus passengers still went on cruises in 2012. Despite all of the issues that have happened to the cruising industry in recent months, cruising is still a major tourism, a major hospitality industry player without any question, and San Francisco is certainly in that mix. Most cruise ships sail under foreign flags because they were built abroad. And, the reasons are pretty simple. One, it costs a lot of money in the United States because of maritime union labor. so it's cheaper to build them in other places. And U.S. ships aren't permitted to have gaming, and that's one of the key elements of why you build a ship. You want to have gaming. It's okay to have gaming on a ship once it's outside of the territorial waters in the U.S. Many foreign shipyards are government subsidized as well. So what you have is you have a government who's backing those shipyards, and therefore it will be cheaper for them to do that. Now, there's a lot of argument about that under foreign flags, different rules, and so on. But the reality is that the U.S. has very, very strict rules that any cruise ship coming into the U.S. has to abide by, and so do other countries. And unfortunately, Korea is getting some, well, at least one particular situation is getting some bad press right now because of what was essentially a ferry, but a payoff in government. That's not very typical in terms of that environment. Korea is a pretty well structured and well regulated country. So it's an unfortunate thing that's happening to them right at the moment. But if you look at the cruise market in this day and age is really more than one market. Cruises used to be something only the rich went on. If you went on the Titanic, you had some money. You also didn't live, but you had some money. But if today, you can go on any kind of a cruise. There's the mass market cruises. Carnival was the beginning in that, but Disney Cruises is another one. And you're looking at people in the lower income range, and the cost is a lot less. Then you have the middle market, and I think that a lot of the ships that are coming into San Francisco that I'm seeing, the Princess Cruise ships that are coming into San Francisco, are what I would call the middle market. They're going out to college professors. Erin Grogan, who's the head of our administration for the School of Management, she recently took her family on a cruise that this is the dedication that the staff has here at USF. She left from Los Angeles and sailed into San Francisco with her family. They had a day in San Francisco. She came back out, taught a class, went to her office, and then went back to the ship with her kids, where they then sailed to Mexico. So that's kind of dedication. But that's the middle market. And then you have the luxury market, and you have some very high-end, very specialized kinds of ships. Most of them tend to be smaller. The bigger ships tend to look towards the middle market or the mass market, and the luxury ships are the ones towards the smaller aspect. Now, cruise lines. This is an interesting element, and I know one of the groups did Princess Cruises. In fact, there really are only a handful of cruise companies. There are a number of different brands, but there are a handful of cruise companies, which I'll get to in a minute. Carnival has the largest number of ships, and Princess is right behind them, and that's who's sailing in here. And in fact, they're actually part of the same company. Holland America, Costa did a lot, by the way, out of Hong Kong. Those of you from Hong Kong, they have a lot out of there. P&O, Cunard, Seabourn, looking down that list in terms of where they are. Notice it goes from 24 down to 3, and you're still in the top 10 with even 3 ships. Now, Caribbean Cruise Lines is the largest organization. And I'm sorry, I skipped a slide here. That's not correct. Carnival is the largest. Those are all Carnivals. I'm sorry, never mind. Forget what I was saying. I thought this was a list of all of them. I didn't read the top. Pardon me. These are all part of Carnival Cruises. So all of these ships are all owned under the same umbrella. They're all part of Carnival Cruise Lines. The next, I'm going the wrong way now. Sorry about that. Next one in size is Caribbean Lines. Caribbean Cruise Lines is Royal Caribbean, and we have some of them coming into here. Celebrity, and several others. And they also have a half interest in another line, a European line, TUI. I'm not sure whether it's pronounced TUI or TUI. There was a travel organization in that area called TUI, so that may be it. Others, Norwegian Cruise Line. They're owned by Apollo and Genting, Hong Kong, and Star Cruises. So the Norwegian Cruise Line is owned out of Asia. MSC Cruises, that's a Mediterranean company, and Crystal Cruises are Japanese owned and also a very high-end cruise line company. largest cruise ships. The Royal Caribbean's Allure of the Seas. These are 6,000 or so people. There you'll see Royal Caribbean is in the top. Royal Caribbean's Oasis of the Seas. The Norwegian Cruise Line's Epic Royal Caribbean, again, Freedom of the Seas, and Cunard's Queen Mary 2. Which, by the way, when I was in Hong Kong a couple of years ago, the Queen Mary 2 came into Hong Kong. But the problem is that it's such a big ship, and there was no space in the Victoria Harbor, so it actually had to dock out in a remote area from Sai Kung and couldn't even be seen from there. I have a question coming up. Let's see. Does this mean that different ships are used for different cruise lines? Yes, it means different cruise lines own different ships. That's correct. That's correct. I think that's the question you're asking. Yes, and there are a number of different cruise lines. Let's see a few more questions coming up here. Does this mean okay? These are likely to be the largest because of regulations. These will likely be the largest because of regulations. Yeah, that would make sense. Yes, because the port size is and the depth and so on in terms of where you can go. But one of the challenges with a cruise ship, which happened here recently out of San Francisco, is that the spread of any kind of a virus is so quick and so epidemic. It's really hard to control. I mean, the cruise ship went out a few weeks ago. I saw it going out. It was the regular Princess Cruise leaving San Francisco, and then a day later it's returning, and I'd never seen it come back that quick before, because it had all the people, 37 something like that, people that gotten sick on that cruise. It takes a long time to clean that up afterwards as well. Okay, looking at your questions. So the issues facing the industry today are huge issue with regards to health and safety. I don't know how many of you feel a concern with going on a cruise ship. How many of you would be concerned these days with going on a cruise ship? A few people typing. I'll give you a minute while I have another swig of water. In Las Vegas, it gets very dry, so you have to drink a lot of water. I see some people with their hands raised here. If anyone would like to make a comment, by the way, if you raise your hand, I just looked over here, I can actually enable a microphone. And I see Alex and Adrian, Sydney, you raised your hands over there. If you have an interest in chiming in with a comment, I'm happy to let you in. So one says it's not the ship that is dangerous, it's the people on it. Yeah, well, that's a good point. Yes, I think health and safety is important. Yeah. The shipwreck, does the company compensate anything? Well, yeah, but I don't think that that's worth a whole lot if you're not around, is it? I think the people on Concordia that went down in Spain got a limited number of fund returned back. I know the plane crash at SFO was only like $5,000. So I'm gathering that you're all still interested in cruising. I only had a couple of people that said no here. I see a whole lot of other people that are making comments about that. Well, let's talk about the second issue while you're typing that. Second issue is worker protection. What do we mean by that? Well, the factor of what we're talking about here has to do with the number of hours that people work and where they come from and where you hire the people, what you bring on in that process. One of the major cruise lines, I think cruise is the only risky one in other vacation. Okay, yeah, flying. Um, one of the challenges here is with regards to where you hire people from. Now, there was an issue a number of years ago brought up at a conference that I was at to a senior executive of one of the major cruise lines. And the conference was an academic conference, and the focus of that conference had to do with diversity and diversity in the industry. And this senior executive of the cruise line was asked the question about diversity within the organization, and he said very simply, he said, "We're a very diverse organization. We have all of the people who work in the engine room of the are Portuguese." And then he went on to say a few other things, and he said, "But he said we don't hire anyone from Jamaica because we're afraid that they're going to be used to run drugs." And we all turned to each other and looked at each other and said, "How is that diversity? How is that diversity?" So, this challenge of how you integrate on a worldwide basis. Your flag is not an American flag, so your rules and regulations, if you're into an American port, are certainly there. But what about for the workers and the number of hours that they work? There's a lot of concern with regards to employees on that product. And that isn't cruise line employee or seasonal? Not necessarily. You know, with cruise lines, the way they operate is that they operate in certain areas during certain times of the year. So the same ship may be operating here at one period of time, someplace else another. In the summertime, you're going to have cruises that are going to go from San Francisco up to Vancouver and up to Alaska and so on along that area. Not in the wintertime. In the wintertime, they're going to go down to Mexico. You're going to have cruise ships that go through the Panama Canal during certain times of the year. And they do a cruise where they're on the west coast, and then they're actually going to move over to the Mediterranean, so they sail through there. Used to be you could do a transatlantic because they were trying to move the ships from being out of Miami over to the Mediterranean in the summertime or whatever it may be that they were doing, because Miami is not as big of a draw during that period of time, or during that time of the year, during that time of the year. So I'm still seeing a few more comments. Anybody want to voice a comment? I can certainly let you in on the voice comment if anybody wants to raise their hand. I'll let you in on the voice comment. You can make any comment you like with regards to the cruising industry, pro or con. Now, probably if I told you I gave you extra credit points, you'd raise your hand. I'm just kidding. I'm not giving you extra credit points for it. But it is an opportunity. Cindy, you have your hand up. Would you like the microphone enabled? I'm enabling the microphone. Would you like to make a comment? Okay, I'm hearing no more comments. Let's see. Place or seasonal. Sorry, that was an accident. Oh, okay, it was an accident. All right. You really didn't want to talk online and be recorded for history, right? Okay. Now, I promised you earlier that I would show you the view, so I'm going to give you a chance here. I'm gonna walk away for a minute and see if I can open the drapes up here, and I'll show you the view of Vegas. You're probably not going to see me, but I'll move out of the way and say, "Oh, it's not going to show up very well. I think it's just too bright out there today. The sunshine." Okay, let me pull it up here a little bit. There you go. There's the view of the mountains over there to the west, and you can see the Rio over there, and the palms, and a few of the others in the area. Okay, now you can't see me because of the light behind us. But any last questions? Wait, we'll end a little bit early today. Just to let you know, by the way, I am working on your papers. I took a quick, yes, I see the question. I took a quick glance through them uh, over the weekend, and I thought there were some great looking papers, some great stuff in there. I only had one that was off the mark in terms of the objective of the paper, which I turned back. And I had a couple of you who I simply asked who it was that you actually interviewed because I didn't see that within there, and I think that everyone has gotten back to me on that. So if you haven't heard from me with anything, you are good to go on that project as far as that is concerned. So the next thing will be next week back in class for our last class, and a couple of things that we're going to do, by the way, next week, the important elements for everyone to be there. One is that this will be your opportunity to declare your track, whether you've decided to do the convention and event track or whether you've decided to do the hotel and restaurant track. Now, you can change, but we're going to put everybody through so that your degree works will show all of the courses from here on in. So we will come in. Gina's going to come in actually, and she'll have some forms for you that'll be filled out in terms of what you need to do. You can turn those in then or shortly afterwards in order to get yourself in there. The other aspect is that we will also do the summas, the evaluations of the course, and the evaluation will be based on the lecture part of the course. KO does her own aspect with regards to the career lab aspect, so it will be on that part. So I look forward to seeing you all back in class next week, and enjoy the rest of this week. Good luck with your project. I know you have to have turned in for KO this week. Hotel. I have a question. Alex said something about hotel. Yes, hotel and restaurant or meeting and event. Those are the two options. Okay, any further questions? Waiting, see any more coming up. Okay, seeing no further questions, I wish you all a good day. Thanks very much. And